In previous video, we covered creating data and using its form and server actions. In this video, we're gonna cover how to update your data and what should we do. Okay, in order to do that, we already have an edit form that is taking 3 arguments, that is taking 3 inputs from the user. One is name, email, and password. We don't need the password here. We don't want the user to change its password here, so we're gonna comment it out or delete it completely, and boom, gone. Now the form inputs are ready. I'm gonna delete misspelled here. Let's run our dev server. Okay, we are showing this list, but when we click on edit, it should navigate us to localhost edit / this ID. This ID belongs to this user. Okay, in order to do that, we have to create a dynamic route in Next.js, which I'll link it to the previous video. To create a new dynamic route, we have to use edit / ID and following by page.tsx. This is a route in Next.js. Edit user page. Okay, now that I've create an edit page for our user, let's render our form here. Edit user form. What is the name of this component? User create form. I misspelled because I copied the previous form. User edit form. User edit form instead of edit user form. Okay, in here we wanna create an action. Action edit user. What was the name before? Create user. So in here I want to export async function. Edit user takes form data, and we want to write a try catch block. Or so in here it gives us password as well, but we don't have a password in our form, so we have to create another validate input. So we call this validate create inputs to change it here, but we want to create another function called validate update inputs, which gets form data and name and email. Copilot completes validate update inputs ID. Okay, we have to get ID. So how can we do that? In edit user page, when we request a dynamic, when we are rendering a dynamic page, it gives the ID as a param here. So if we creating a props, oh my god, I can type. We get params and we get ID as in string here, but it's an optional ID. Okay, params, and we have to get ID from params.id. So let's null check it here if the ID is undefined or not found. This is getting ID, and we have to send this ID to this component user edit form. So in here we want to get props ID string ID. When we want to pass in an ID in here, we can't. It's telling us it's not possible. Let's import it here. When we want to pass this function to the server actions, it's telling us it's not assignable to type string / form data / undefined, because it expects us to only pass form data. So what we want to do here is edit user with given ID, create a new function, edit user, and bind this argument to send it to the user. So when we want to pass this function, edit user with given ID, so this gives us error if we're going to fix it here. If we want to get string in here, you see here, but when we use this way, it gives us okay, because this first one is actually calling like this: edit user ID and form data. this actually pass in here actions like the example that I told you. Okay, now that I've created this and this, okay, let's pass in ID. Okay, let's check here. When we click edit, it doesn't give us the default values for this. Let's fetch default values for this SQL user. This is not an async function. We have to type user. We want to select everything from users where ID. This is not a good practice, by the way. I should call this function or make this in another function and call that function in here. But for the sake of this example, I do this. And I don't pass ID in here because I have to do this, and we're gonna wait users, or this is a user single user. Now let's tell the form I want to get user data. It's all that ID is in it. User is a type of user, and in here user, and in here it's according to ID. Argument of type number is not assignable to type string. Okay, let's, yeah, it's string actually. Okay, let's save this. Let's head over here. User.rows 0, and we want to get rid of ID prop. Okay, let's check our app. If you hit refresh, it's still not showing up. Why? Let me debug it first. So in here we get params.id. If the ID is not valid, it's gonna show us. Let's log ID in here. It's working. Select everything from users where ID is ID. Oh, we did not apply the data into default values. We did not feed the inputs with our values. Default value is user.email. Oh, it's name. Okay, I'm sorry. And in here, default value is user yesterday.email. Let's check in our app. Yep, it's working. For example, google.com. Let's hit enter, and it's working. Yep. Congratulations, we have updated our app, and in here we validate our forms. But as we progress over data mutation, we create more mess over our validating our inputs, and we don't have a client-side validation that shows errors in here, and we kind of doing these in the same legacy ways. So in the next video, we're gonna cover how to validate forms and using Zod. Thanks for watching.